Fire with an AR-15, also dead, killed by law enforcement. Governor Abbott has begun to speak. Let's listen in.
Has to have evil in his heart. But it is far more evil for someone to gun down little kids. It is intolerable and it is unacceptable for us to have in the state anybody who would kill little kids in our schools. Children are a blessing. God teaches us that. They're filled with laughter, innocence, and joy. Their love is a gift that parents get to unwrap every single day. Parents in Uvalde had that gift taken away from them, stolen by a demented person. Days before yesterday, when these children were at school, some were receiving awards for perfect attendance. These kids will never attend school again. To say the least, Uvalde has been shaken to its core. Families are broken apart. Hearts are forever shattered. All Texans are grieving with the people of Uvalde. And people are rightfully angry about what has happened. Events like this, they tear at the fabric of a community. Our job is to ensure that the community is not going to be ripped apart. All Texans must come together and support the families who have been affected by this horrific tragedy. What they need now more than ever is our love. What they need is uplifting from all of our fellow Texans and all of our fellow Americans. And let me emphasize something that I know you all know. But the reality is, as horrible as what happened, it could have been worse. The reason it was not worse is because law enforcement officials did what they do. They showed amazing courage by running toward gunfire for the singular purpose of trying to save lives. And it is a fact that because of their quick response, getting on the scene, being able to respond to the gunman and eliminate the gunman, they were able to save lives. Unfortunately, not enough. But I want to make sure that everybody knows, all of the law enforcement agencies and groups that are involved and were involved in this process. The Texas Rangers are leading the investigation, and they are supported by the Texas Department of Public Safety Highway Patrol, the Texas Department of Public Safety Criminal Investigative Division, DPS Aircraft, DPS Intelligence Counter and Terrorism Division, DPS Crime and Victim Support. They're also supported by the Texas Division of Emergency Management, the FBI, as well as multiple federal partners, including the DEA, ATF, HSI, and Border Patrol. And then, of course, the valiant local officials, the Uvalde Sheriff's Department, Uvalde Police Department, Uvalde Independent School District Police, Uvalde County Constables, Uvalde Mayor, the County Judge, Uvalde District Attorney's Office, local public works and surrounding police department, and the San Antonio Police and Fire Department also. Let me walk you through some of the facts of what has happened. There's been a lot of things that have been said. Some are correct, some are incorrect. Let me tell you the best information that we have at this time, understanding, very importantly, that this is an ongoing investigation, and ongoing investigations often reveal new information as those investigations progress. The first thing that happened was that the gunman shot his grandmother in the face. She then contacted police. The gunman fled, and as he was fleeing, he had an accident just outside of the elementary school, and he ran into the school. Officers with the Consolidated Independent School District, they approached the gunman and engaged with the gunman at that time. The gunman then entered a back door and went down 2 short hallways and then into a classroom on the left-hand side. The gunman entered into that classroom, and the classroom was connected internally to another classroom. Border Patrol, Consolidated ISD officers, police, sheriffs, and DPS officers converged on that classroom, and a Border Patrol officer killed the gunman. As I said, Texas Rangers are leading the investigation, joined by federal, state, and local law enforcement officials. At this time, we know that 19 children have lost their lives. 2 faculty members lost their lives. In addition to that, there are 17 people who are injured, but their injuries are not life-threatening. All family members of all of these students and faculty members have been contacted and informed about the circumstances. Officials are working with parents to ensure that their parents are going to be able to see their children. Parents should contact victim services at the county fairplex. We know that there are parents still striving to make a connection. All parents are welcome and urged to contact victim services at the county fairplex. The gunman was 18 years old and reportedly a high school dropout. Reportedly, there has been no criminal history identified yet. He may have had a juvenile record, but that is yet to be determined. There was no known mental health history of the gunman. He used one weapon, which was an AR-15, using 223 rounds. There was no meaningful forewarning of this crime other than what I'm about to tell you. As of this time, the only information that was known in advance was posted by the gunman on Facebook approximately 30 minutes before reaching the school. The first post was to the point of, he said, "I'm going to shoot my grandmother." The second post was, "I shot my grandmother." The third post, maybe less than 15 minutes before arriving at the school, was, "I'm going to shoot an elementary school." I mentioned that during the shootout that took place at the school, in addition to the students and the faculty, there were 3 officers who were injured who were all remain in good condition. 1 deputy sheriff lost a daughter in that school. Before coming out here, we had a long discussion with law enforcement at all levels. We had a discussion with community leaders, elected officials. And I asked the sheriff and others an open-ended question and got the same answer from the sheriff as well as from the mayor of Uvalde. The question was, what is the problem here? And they were straightforward and emphatic. They said, we have a problem with mental health illness in this community. And then they elaborated on the magnitude of the mental health challenges that they're facing in the community and the need for more mental health support in this region. I want to make sure everybody understands the mental health services that are available at this time, with me making one clarifying point in advance that I'm going to redouble down in the aftermath. Whenever anything as shocking and extraordinary and disturbing as this event occurs, there is an urgent need for everybody affected to access mental health. I cannot be more emphatic than saying with great urgency, everybody in this community, I mean everybody, the victims, the families, family members, friends, the law enforcement involved, but the entire community is in utter shock about this. Some physical wounds that were sustained by the officers, they're going to heal in the coming days. The mental and emotional wounds are far harder to see and last far longer. The state of Texas, working with federal and local officials and agencies, we're going to be here for a long, long time. And one key point that we will focus on is making sure that everybody in this community has the access they need for as long as they need it to address with the mental and emotional health care needs that they have. I want to list various agencies and make sure these are made available to the public. The mental health services currently available are from victim services from across the area from federal, state, and local levels, including the Family Resource Center at the Uvalde County Fairplex. Schools have crisis teams at the Uvalde Civic Center. They provide wraparound services for families who are affected. The Texas Child Mental Health Consortium, created by the state legislature in 2019, is available to assist. The Bluebonnet Children's Advocacy Center is available to provide services for children. The Texas Health and Human Services Commission is on site and will be available for ongoing provision of services. The Texas Education Agency is providing supplemental counseling services. The Texas Department of Public Safety Counseling is providing counseling services for law enforcement. And the FBI is also bringing in mental health services for law enforcement. It cannot be overemphasized the importance of law enforcement officers, all of them, seeking out and obtaining this mental health counseling. The District Attorney's Office for Victim Services has a phone number available for all victims, and candidly, the entire community, in a way, is a victim here. And I was provided their number to give out to you publicly. This is the number for the District Attorney's Office for Victim Services. The number is 830-278-2916. And at this time, I will pass the mic to Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Sit down.
You're out of line and an embarrassment.
Sit down and don't play this stuff.
The next shooting is right now, and you are doing nothing.
No, he needs to get his ass out of here. This isn't the place to talk this over.
This is totally predictable when you...
Sir, you're out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Please leave this auditorium. I can't believe you're a sick son of a bitch that would come to a deal like this to make a political issue. It's on assholes like you. Why don't you get out of here?
You have been watching a news conference a couple miles from where I'm standing featuring Texas Governor Greg Abbott, confronted at the end of his remarks by Beto O'Rourke. We could not make out what Mr. O'Rourke was saying, but some profanity from the stage from the deputy governor, the lieutenant governor of Texas. We presume the issue was over a key question from the press conference. Governor Abbott said in private to law enforcement and recounted the story to the public. What is the problem? And his answer,
You are crying as we speak.
his answer was mental health, not guns.
Hearts are broken.
Let's listen back in. Governor Greg Abbott is addressing the crowd once again.
Do anything to heal those broken hearts. We all, every Texan, every American has a responsibility where we need to focus not on ourselves and our agendas. We need to focus on the healing and hope that we can provide to those who have suffered unconscionable damage to their lives and loss of life. We need all Texans to, in this one moment in time, put aside personal agendas, think of somebody other than ourselves, think about the people who were hurt, and help those who have been hurt. And this time, Lieutenant Governor will speak.
I was just about to say that there will be plenty of time.
We're going to cut back in here as the Lieutenant Governor begins his remarks. His earlier remarks directly to Beto O'Rourke, former congressman now running for governor from the great state of Texas. He said, "You sick son of a word I can't repeat, sit down, you are out of line." This a difference of opinion, you might say, in the most dramatic form over what exactly is to blame for the massacre in the building behind me and what exactly this community needs now. Healing for those who are suffering or a change to policy to help the next victims, the victims to come. Let's go now to Janet Shamlian, who was at the press conference. Janet, you were in the room. My goodness, could you make out what was being said by Beto O'Rourke?
Well, I did see what happened just before the press conference started. I was in the third row on the aisle, rather, and there were two people across the aisle from me, and a moment before the press conference started, they got up from their seats when Beto walked in. So they were seat holders for him, and then he sat down. So his presence wasn't really noticed in the 15 or 20 minutes that people were gathering inside because he was not in the room. So this seems something very clearly staged by Beto O'Rourke and his campaign wanting to confront the governor at this moment. Also want to talk just a little bit about some of the new information that we have learned, and it is considerable. We did learn that we knew that the suspect had shot his grandmother, but the governor told us that that grandmother was shot in the face. Also, we learned that a member of law enforcement has lost a child in this, and a few more details just about what happened. There were two classrooms that were connected. The shooter was able to access both, and I just have to tell you that it looks like maybe Beto O'Rourke is being removed, or somebody right now, because there's a lot of commotion here behind me. But certainly a news-making press conference that is still going on, Tony.
Yeah, Janet, to hear you talk about the seat holders for Beto O'Rourke, it definitely indicates that Beto had a plan to get in there and make some sort of a scene. We still don't know exactly what he said. So it was staged, as you point out. Of course, a press conference, which is what was going on the stage, is also staged. So some political do-si-do here in the state of Texas. Two other items I think that were interesting, that were new coming out of that press conference. You know what, Janet? We've got Beto with a scrum of reporters and some audio. Let's listen in, hear what he has to say.
Todo lo que es posible para prevenir estas masacres que tenemos en cada comunidad. Sutherland Springs, Santa Fe High School en el condado acerca de Harris, en El Paso también. Tenemos el poder, pero necesitamos hacer algo en este momento. Si no hacemos algo, vamos a continuar con las masacres, como la masacre que tuvimos aquí en Uvalde en esta semana aquí.
What his exact purpose was there, but we presume it had something to do with gun control, a policy platform that is important to him and to many others in his party, many other Americans for that matter. Janet, to pick up where we left off, two other interesting things from the press conference. The gunman using a back door, I didn't know that. And then making his way to an empty classroom with some sort of a sliding door or access to then a full classroom. That's the tragic route there. And then I was not aware of the Facebook postings. Apparently 30 minutes before he's in the school, there's a posting, I'm going to shoot my grandmother, I've shot my grandmother, and then a final posting along the lines of I'm going to shoot an elementary school. Did we know that was new information, was it not?
That's new information. So we knew there were some social media posts attributed to him, but nothing like this timeline that the governor just laid out, that he posted, I'm going to shoot my grandmother, I've shot my grandmother, I'm going to an elementary school, on Facebook reportedly. The other social media posts were on TikTok and other forums.
Yeah, it was also interesting that there's no known criminal history, at least adult criminal history, to this fresh 18-year-old, just turned 18 this month. The governor not ruling out possibly some juvenile charges. Key to the debate that followed and the outburst between him and Beto O'Rourke, the governor said there is no known mental health diagnosis for the gunman who slaughtered so many in the building behind me. That would seem to gravely imperil the next statement, which was that mental health is the root of the problem here in Texas. I want to let our viewers know about a recent CBS News poll. It was taken after the Buffalo, New York mass shooting, the one from a weekend ago. Before the shooting here in Uvalde, it found that 54% of Americans, so a slim majority, do want laws covering the sale of guns made more strict than they are now. 30% said the laws should be kept about where they are, and 16% want them to be even less strict. It gives you a sense of where the country is. Most people want some sort of tightening of the regulations as they exist. For more on the powers that be in Washington who might be able to change those regulations, let's bring in Congressional correspondent Scott McFarland. He's made his way to Capitol Hill for us. Scott, I know you've been trying to talk to members of Congress. What are they telling you? What do you know?
Tony, as this is happening, the Senate has begun the procedure to eventually debate two new gun control measures, one of which was passed by the U.S. House and would tighten background checks for some gun sales and transfers. But the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee told me a short while ago the Senate won't debate those bills or take them up on the floor until after the Memorial Day recess. And the Senate doesn't just take a 3-day weekend for Memorial Day. They don't come back here till the second week of June. So there'll be some time between now and any floor debate. Some of the centrist senators are talking about a possible negotiation over red flag laws. That's the law by which a judge can order a gun removed from somebody deemed dangerous. But there was another red line drawn today by that pivotal Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia. The moderate Democrat told us he is not going to support removing the filibuster for these gun control debates. The filibuster requires a 60-vote threshold to pass gun control law, and there are simply not 60 votes in the U.S. Senate at this moment in time. And pretty much anything much less gun control. One other note, Tony. Republicans today here at the Capitol were talking about school hardening, providing more money for more armed police or more school apparatus to protect against gun crimes. But we checked with the Department of Justice. Just last year, they handed out tens of millions of dollars to local school systems for school hardening. Tony, that's in addition to the local tax money that is regularly spent on that endeavor.
It's an interesting suggestion, Scott. You know, a lieutenant in the Texas Department of Public Safety told me earlier today that this gunman was engaged by at least 2 law enforcement officers on his way into the building, and that degree of hardening was not enough to keep him out. And then it was an elite unit that is actually able to get into the building. But one more question on the Democrats. Senator Chuck Schumer, he has been outspoken on the issue. We heard from him earlier today. What did he say?
He's been talking about having a vote to get everybody on the record, a messaging vote. Take a listen to some of his remarks on the Senate floor late this morning.
Please, 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 damn it, put yourself in the shoes of these parents for once. Maybe that thought, putting yourself in the shoes of these parents instead of in the arms of the NRA, might let you wriggle free from the vice-like grip of the NRA, might free you to act on even a simple measure. For the sake of these children, these 9-year-olds, these 10-year-olds, these 11-year-olds, these beautiful children, please, damn it, please, think if it was your child or grandchild.
I'll underscore, though, Senator Schumer is going to wait for a formal floor debate until mid-June, Tony.
Well, Scott, I mean, we had a show vote when it came to abortion. Now we're talking about a show vote when it comes to a show vote, rather, when it comes to gun control. I wonder when there's going to be some compromise and members of both parties will be able to get behind something. As you say, there's that 60-vote threshold. Scott, thank you. We've got some news here. CBS News has confirmed that 4 of the 21 victims, including an 8-year-old girl, Uzia Garcia, 9-year-old Amory Joe Garza, 10-year-old Annabelle Rodriguez, and the teacher, that was Ava Morales. Those are the 4 known victims so far. Lilia Luciano has been on this part of the story for us, and she's made her way down here to Texas and is over at Sacred Heart Church here in Uvalde. Lilia, good afternoon to you. What do you know? What are you hearing there?
Good afternoon, Tony. Well, we're trying to get more details about the lives these young children lived, the lives of at least this one teacher and who the other victims were. I've been talking to people in this community who everybody seemed to be almost directly or pretty directly and directly impacted by this. Everywhere I've gone to stores and coffee shops. I've been here at the church. I talked to Father Matthew de Leon, who held a prayer yesterday, and he's been offering services, him and other staff in his church, for the families. He's been talking to little children. He says those little children who survived this horrible shooting, all they were concerned about was their friends. There's going to be a vigil with the Archbishop and the Bishop of Piedras Negras across the border. We'll keep you informed on everything around these victims in this Latino community.
Lilia, thank you very much. Tomorrow was supposed to be the last day of school here, the start of summer vacation, but in the wake of this massacre, the superintendent said last night, quote, the school year is done. Governor Greg Abbott said children are a blessing. That's certainly true. Guns are a right, though, and one seems to be threatening the other at the moment. Our coverage will continue on CBS News Streaming, your local news, and tonight on the CBS Evening News. This has been a CBS News special report. I'm Tony DeCopel in Uvalde, Texas.
Well, you have been watching a CBS News special report. We now want to take you back to the press conference that's being led by Governor Greg Abbott and a delegation of Texas politicians who, again, are mourning and grieving in the loss of the students and teachers killed in yesterday's mass shooting. Here's the press conference in Uvalde, still going on.
Out of the classroom, when it was safe, when they were guided, and the trust our kids had in their teachers, that says volumes for our staff here in Uvalde. They are heroes They did heroic things yesterday, and they are always very humble, but they are truly humble heroes. Yesterday, we lost 2 teachers. These 2 teachers, I would say, are the cornerstone of that campus to some great degree. They're 2 beautiful souls. They have taught on that campus for many years. They have kids in our district, and they poured their heart and soul into what they did in educating our kids in Uvalde. 19 students, 19 precious students who came to school yesterday to enjoy the day, to enjoy the award assembly. And as I look at their pictures, you can just tell by their angelic smile that they were loved, that they loved coming to school, and they were just precious individuals. This is a difficult time for everybody. We are hurting. We have been cut deep here in our community. We will move forward. It's going to take some time moving forward. While our faith has been shaken, we ask you to continue to pray for these families, these kids in our community, and our teachers. I am a product of Uvalde. I'm born and raised here. I've worked for this district for 30 years. And never thought I would be sitting in front of you doing this today. But please pray for our teachers, pray for our community, and we will move forward. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. We'll take a few questions.
Governor, you've talked a lot about mental health, but not talking about guns. Do you think an 18-year-old who's been improvised weaponry in his arm, would you commit to making any changes as far as gun laws?
So the ability of an 18-year-old to buy a long gun has been in place in the state of Texas for more than 60 years. And think about during the time over the course of that 60 years, we have not had episodes like this. And why is it that for the majority of those 60 years, we did not have school shootings? And why is it that we do now? The reality is I don't know the answer to that question. However, what I do know in talking to the leaders here, as well as leaders in other locations around the state, and that is one thing that has substantially changed is the status of mental health in our communities. What I do know is this, and that is we as a state, we as a society, need to do a better job with mental health. Anybody who shoots somebody else has a mental health challenge, period. We as a government need to find a way to target that mental health challenge and do something about it. Director McCraw will have the best information on that.
We're in the process of doing the crime scene right now. The first one being the school, the second being the vehicle, and the third, the grandmother's residence. And I can tell you where it's a detailed process, so I can't answer that. But for right now, we believe that all the children were shot and killed by Ramos.
Director, in terms of the perpetrators, social media and postings that have been reported and analyzed, you don't believe that there was any sort of a warning or any information that would indicate that he was posing some sort of danger, maybe not a precise danger to this specific school, but weren't there warning signs that were available on social media, maybe to the platform, maybe to people he was communicating with?
We did see some, and I think one was of a concern, and that concern was, relayed to allegedly, we haven't confirmed it yet, to someone in California who didn't report it. And we're in the process of working with the FBI right now to make sure she's interviewed and find out more about it. There may be other clues out there right now that we're not aware of. This is a preliminary part of the investigation, and we're going to scour everything to find anything that what could have indicated in some way, shape, or form that this individual was a threat to the community.
But nothing had come to local law enforcement that they could have acted?
None at all. In fact, this is, we're astounded at the beginning of the investigation because there's usually something out there, but right now, it is as that reported on the timeline. If we find out something else, we'll provide that information.
So I'm going to answer in part, but we also have the TEA Commissioner Mike Morath with us, who may be able to shed additional light. But here's the information that we know, and you pointed out SB 11. Listen, as you know, but others may not. People need to understand that in the aftermath of the Santa Fe shooting, I signed 17 laws to address school safety. And one of them dealt with threat assessment and preparation for threat assessment. And there are certain standards that schools are required to comply with to make sure that they are addressing threat assessments. I have no information as we speak at this particular time about the status of this particular elementary school or the ISD about what the status was concerning threat assessments. However, to make sure that your broader question is answered sufficiently, Mike, you want to come up? The person coming up is Mike Morath, who is the commissioner for the Texas Education Agency.
So there's significant appropriations provided to ensure that the local school systems around the state have resources for this. One of the components of Senate Bill 11 was a school safety allotment. There was additional upfront funding for that. The Texas School Safety Center and our agency work in collaboration to provide technical assistance and training to school district leaders, counseling team leaders, others, to ensure that the threat assessment protocols and these procedures, including threat response plans, the operational multi-hazard plans, are practiced on a recurring basis. So there have been essentially fairly significant efforts to bolster those managerial practices and these detective or preventative practices in schools all over the state of Texas. We will continue to do more. After any incident like this, of course, you reflect on lessons learned to ensure that we can prevent this kind of situation in schools going forward.
Yeah, if I can just add to that.
One sec. I'll call on you next. 1 second.
If I can just add to that briefly, in 19, the House and Senate worked together, put $100 million into trying to give the schools all the tools that they needed to try and protect the students. The Marshals program, the Guardian program to arm teachers where schools want it. We left a lot of those programs optional up to the parents and the school boards and the school districts. And they're doing the best they can. And you're always going to have, again, no matter what you do, there's going to be someone to find another area that's vulnerable. But the legislature did act. The governor signed those bills, but we can and need to do more. And in the area of mental health, we've also been working on that as well, but need to do more. We've got to, in our smaller schools where we can get down to one entrance. One entrance might be one of those solutions. If you had taken 3 more minutes to find an open door, police were there pretty quickly. But this school district has been doing a really good job in trying to protect their students. And those teachers died yesterday protecting their students. And this is a continued work for us.
Governor, last night you were at a political fundraiser in Walker County. Why did you not cancel that event? And your press officer stated that you plan on canceling all future political events going forward until further notice. Does that include the NRA convention here in Houston on Friday?
So first, with regard to yesterday, I was actually in Taylor County responding to a different disaster, a disaster of fires that had ripped through Taylor County and destroyed 20 homes. And that is when I learned about the shooting that was taking place pretty much at that time here. On the way back to Austin, I stopped and let people know that I could not stay, that I needed to go, and I wanted them to know what happened and get back to Austin so that I could continue my collaboration with Texas law enforcement to make sure that all the needs were being met here in the Uvalde area. As far as future plans are concerned, listen, I'm living moment to moment right now. My heart, my head, and my body are in Uvalde right now, and I'm here to help the people who are hurting.
Director, can you confirm from the moment that the campus officers engaged?
Well, you were just watching a press conference updating the investigation into Tuesday's mass shooting at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. And that shooting killed 19 students and 2 teachers. 17 other people were injured. Texas Governor Greg Abbott spoke, saying all Texans need to come together to support the families and victims of this tragedy. Now, we still obviously very early in the investigation. Authorities trying to determine a motive, and the investigation is still going on. Frankly, it's hard to imagine at this point that'll do much for the devastated families of the 21 victims killed in yesterday's mass shooting. A horrific day continues today for the parents and the families of that community. Flowers being laid to rest outside the elementary school there, and a makeshift memorial as the community tries to somehow make sense of this senseless shooting. We want to take you now to Dulles, Virginia, where First Lady Jill Biden is addressing the school shooting in Texas. Let's watch.
Teachers, Eva and Irma. Let us pray that God cradles those broken families in the palm of his hand. But let us also pray to use the will and courage God gives each of us to act united with common sense to protect our children. Congresswoman Wexton and Mr. Ambassador, I've always said that food is love, but food is life too. And I've been heartbroken to hear the stories of parents searching for formula. As a mom and a nana, it's impossible to hear the stories of children suffering and not imagine your own children in the same